Hey, this is Anthony from Havoc Games. I thought I would take a few minutes real quick to go through the different rule books that are in the full set of Havoc Combat Card Game. We have Quick Start Guide, we have the Havoc Handbook, and we have the reference book. So the Quick Start Guide is the Quick Start Guide. You can actually get it for free by signing up on our email list. I think we've also put up links in the Kickstarter campaign. It's a 32-page full-color booklet, but about half of it is combat examples. So, there's 2 combat examples using the Romans fight, which is basically the shield mate tier, Roman against the Gallic spearmen, and then the Roman legionnaire later on against the Celtic Mall berserker. Those are the 2 combat examples. So the rest of the booklet is an introduction, art credits. Notice that artificial intelligence is not on any of our art credits. Goes through a quick how to play on how to set up your combatants, how to start fighting, but you get right into it by building a deck of 25 cards and then drawing hands. Talks a little bit about distance and initiative state. I'll go into that in another video at some point. Havoc uses a combat round. The combat round has 3 parts to it. There's the preparation phase, the card play phase, and the wrap-up phase. The preparation phase is when you deal with missile combat and any start of round effects. The card play phase is when you play cards. And then the wrap-up phase is when you do some administrative, like deducting a fatigue from your fighter and figuring out that sort of stuff. So this quick start goes through the different aspects of the card play phase, goes through to hit, goes through calculating damage, how armor works into it, goes through the Havoc red die result and red damage, talks about wound conditions, talks about bash conditions, some other types of aspects that come into the play, like mounted combat and abilities. And then we always like combat examples in any game we've ever played, so we go through combat examples. And so that'll show you more how to play. That's a quick start guide. Then there's the Havoc Handbook, and this goes more in depth into how the cards and dice work, the different types of cards that we have. It goes through a description of the classes: Knight, Barbarian, Warrior, Rogue, and Citizen. Talks a bit about prowess and abilities. Body and fatigue. A lot of games use hit points. We use body, which is your flesh and blood. Fatigue is kind of your grit and stamina. Weapons and armor. A scale here that talks about how body and fatigue stacks up and sort of how a dragon would be versus a tough person. Goes into weapon lengths and so forth, building decks and drawing hands. Advantages of prowess. More on the 25 card deck. Everybody has a 25 card deck. Sometimes the 25 card deck consists of a mix of attacks, pauses, and defenses. Really good fighters have very few pauses. Slow and inexperienced fighters, or fighters using like a really heavy weapon like a halberd, have a lot more pauses in their deck. Goes into fighting. Distance and initiative state, which is all really intuitive. If you have a weapon that's longer than your opponent and the initiative state is longest weapon, you can reach out and touch them before they can reach out and touch you. But if you can get inside the weapon length, like you close with them under a shield parry and you have a short sword, and the initiative state may shift, and then you have an advantage being inside weapon length. So a bit about the combat round, preparation, card play, and wrap-up. Talk about missile weapons. Because we like combat examples, there are missile weapon combat examples. 2 of them, actually. cards. Advantages, disadvantages, etc. To hit. 1 damage. Red die results. You roll a red die and a white die combined, add them together. The red die is special and yields what's called a red die result. Multiple opponents. Card play methods, we'll go into that another time. Some design methods, the handbook. The reference book, we had to split these books up actually into 2 for printer issues. So the reference book has a card map, which goes through each type of card, and then there's a legend explaining details about the card, how that all works. So, you know, we have combatant cards, weapon cards, what's a fight without weapons, armor, because what's a medieval or ancient fight without armor. Combat action cards, which are the heart of Havoc. These are the mix of attacks, red, defenses blue, pauses green. Some more info about combat action cards. We also have tactic cards that are very important. This is the fighter's footwork. It's played once per combat round, the first impulse of the first combat round. You can close with your opponent, you can stand your ground, or you can keep distance. And that has implications on the distance between the fighters, also what happens in the second impulse. For example, if both fighters close, they run into each other, and you have combat. Wound, bash, and other conditions. Other conditions that are included in the full set of Havoc are injury conditions, curse conditions, poison conditions, and fear conditions. Melee cards. So melee cards are basically your reference cards. There are the melee cards are used for referencing and managing distance and initiative state, you know, between the fighters that changes throughout the fight. I'll do a video on that at some point in time. And then there are some other reference cards that tell you things like die roll chances, and you have a cheat sheet on sequence of play and to hit procedure and that sort of stuff. Archetype and foe cards. Havoc has 70 different archetype and foe cards. This is a range of historical archetypes like Hoplite Hero or Gladiator, but also fantasy foes. We call the fantasy creatures foes, and those are trolls and dragons and wights and hobgoblins, stuff like that. Graphic on the 25 card deck, repeat graphic on the combat round. And then the reference guide goes through stats for different historical archetypes that run everything from an Egyptian levy spearman all the way on up to, you know, the Middle Ages, High Middle Ages, Renaissance, and so forth. Does not include fantasy creatures. The fantasy creatures are actually, those stats are contained in Free Havoc. In the back of Free Havoc, there's a similar chart. It looks like this. And it gives you the prowess, the body fatigue, weapon, armor, any abilities they might have, and then importantly, their decks. So you have a pre-built recipe for, you know, a Boeotian heavy cavalryman. You can look here and be like, oh, bronze cuirass, Corinthian helm, fights mounted. This is his deck for two-handed spears. His deck when he uses a sword. Dacian chieftain, you know, Celts. So those are the 3 rule books. And this is actually my printed out copy of Free Havoc, my dog-eared copy, character sheet. But just show you real quick. This has other stuff in it. I was mentioning the fantasy foes, or the stats for those are contained in the back of Free Havoc. Everybody gets Free Havoc if they pledge with or without a reward. And we're actually giving away Free Havoc for signing up on our email list right now. So you can see the quality of our work and what we put together. So that's it for the rule books. Free Havoc, which is all digital. I have a hard copy. So reference book, the handbook, quick start guide, all this, my messy table for Havoc the combat card game. Thanks for watching.